Welcome to Enlightened, the enlightened journey of life. I am your host, Jen Hamilton, and it is an honor to have you here. I am a conscious life coach and women's empowerment mentor, and I activate a potent level of self and soul inquiry with my clients, which initiates deep and lasting transformation in all areas of their lives. I am here for the full human experience, authentically and audaciously sharing my magic with the world. On this podcast, we're all about mastering life on the way to enlightenment. And as we are here having a human experience, we might as well embrace it all. We play in the space of what is real and tangible, just as much as we play in the space of esoteric and metaphysical. You'll be ignited by deep conversation, whether through my own personal musings, interviews with incredible thought leaders around the world, and everyday divine humans sharing their soulful stories. Thank you for being on this journey. Let's dive in. Hello, beautiful soul. Just to let you know that listener discretion is advised for this episode and to be mindful if there are kids around as it contains adult themes. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Enlightened podcast. I'm your host, Jen Hamilton, and today I am joined by a very special guest. Her name is Corbie Mitleid, and Corbie is a certified tarot master, psychic medium, teacher, ordained minister, and has been reading for 50 years. She's a full-time intuitive counselor and sees clients worldwide. Robert Schwartz refers to her work as a channel and past life expert in his breakthrough series on karma and pre-birth planning, your soul's plan, your soul's gifts, and your soul's love. Corbie has written a number of books, and she is an incredibly charismatic and beautiful soul all around. And it was such an honor to have her on the show and have a chat with her. So without further ado, let's dive in. Thank you so much to Corbie Mitleid for joining me on this episode of the podcast. I am so excited to chat with you today because the incredible things that you have done in your life, not only am I so excited about, but I know that our listeners will be absolutely thrilled to hear your story, your view of the world, and some of the incredible things that you've done. So I've mentioned, Corbie, in the introduction, some of the things about you, but I want to hear from you. Who is Corbie? What is it that you do? What is it that you bring to this earth and this time and space?
Okay. First of all, lovely to be here. Envious of your warm weather because I'm here in upstate New York and we got a snowstorm going on, but that's life. Well, the 30-second elevator speech. I am a certified tarot master, past life specialist, psychic medium, channel, author. I am probably the most practical psychic you're ever going to find. I do not believe, like my aura don't stink. My whole thing is I'm here in service. Here are your opportunities and how to grab them. Here's the tough stuff. Here's how to get through it or around it. Here's your toolbox. Go rock and roll. I have been doing this full-time since 2002, part-time since 94, started reading cards in 1973 when I was a senior in high school. And I get to get up in the morning. I don't have to get up in the morning because I'm lucky enough to do this.
I love it. That's amazing. I'm really curious, how is it that you find inspiration in your day?
I look at this life that we've got, and by no means we're not uber wealthy. I'm just me. I don't have a secretary. When people actually get me on the phone, when they call, they're like, I didn't expect to get you. No, it's just me. We live in a tiny little bungalow in the northern Catskills in upstate New York, but it's paid for. It's solid. My husband and I are healthy. We have enough money in the bank. We have health insurance. We're taken care of. We have friends. In the crazy world that we've got today, that's an awful, awful lot of inspiration right there.
I love that. It's so true, isn't it? And I want to chat about, because you've written a few books and you speak into the fact that people buy self-help books and they look pretty and shiny in the bookstore on the shelf and they don't end up reading them. Why is that?
Because the self-help books all in one way or another say, Do what I tell you or you'll get it wrong. And I remember the very first self-help book I got in 1968 when I was 13 years old. And to this day, I remember the first paragraph. Judy has a groovy wardrobe in the 60s. Her hair is far out and her makeup is fab. But nobody likes Judy because Judy's fat. In that one paragraph, millions of preteen and teenage girls were told, you are worthless unless you look exactly the way we tell you to. And that is the way self-help books go. One of the ones recently that I was reading before I wrote my book said you had to get up every morning an extra 2 hours to do yoga and avoid food with leptin. I'm sorry, but if you're a single mom with 2 kids living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and you have a job, you're not going to do that. So when I wrote Clean Out Your Life Closet, I wrote it with the idea that the reader would write it with me. The chapters all have, here are some of the dumb things I did. Maybe here's a client story. Here's some suggestions. But at the end of each chapter, you have what I call the adventure pages, where you have to answer questions, but it's not, you can't go to page 82. You have to answer it from your own life. So just to give you an example of what that's like, the chapter, Finding Happiness with What You Have Right Now. How good are you at finding happiness in the moment? If you aren't good, what do you think stops you? Which happiness ingredient is your favorite? Why? Think of 3 situations in your life that aren't looking terrific right now. How can you find some happiness in the journey? Those have to come from your life. As you read the book, you understand that your life is rich with possibility. Lessons are just that, lessons, and then you go on. So by the end of the book, you and your best friend could have bought the book the same day, read the same chapters at the same rate. If you both did those adventure pages, you'd have 2 separate personal manuals. Because I trust my readers.
I love that. I hear you so deeply on this, and no doubt do our listeners. You read, so many personal development books over the years. And it does, it's an open invitation to really drop into a state of worthlessness when you think to yourself, well, I can't get up any early in the morning, or, I can't just, count to 5 and change my mind in the moment, or I can't, instantly rewire the neural pathways to create a new belief system. These things take time, and it takes action to be able to do so. And so you're absolutely right. It all sounds, all well and good, when you're at the bookstore or, browsing through Audible, and
Yes.
it's just, someone's recommended it because it's changed their life. Absolutely. And, then we get all excited for it when we're reading the book and we're doing it. And I can, hand on my heart say for all of the books that I have read over the years, there is not a lot that has really sort of stuck with me, that it has such an impact on my life. I find them fascinating, and I find that especially when I'm, working with clients that have said, I've read this book and I want to be able to relate to it and understand it, which is why I'm, across all of sort of the main ones. But tell me, Corbie, how did you make sure that your book didn't fall into the typical self-help book trap?
Because I knew how much it hurt with the self-help books. There are 1 or 2 that I've read that are brilliant and wonderful. My favorite one is Happiness is a Choice by Barry Neil Kaufman. It's 30 years old, but it got me through 3 bouts of breast cancer, 2 divorces, and the death of my parents. That was a useful book because it gave you ways to look at things. It didn't say you have to do it our way. And when I was plotting the book, what I did is I put out a survey to hundreds of my clients, and I said, what are the things you want to learn most that you keep tripping over? And they came up with clarity, adaptability, simplicity, and making friends with stress. So that's why I chose those things to write about in the book.
I love that. Can you speak into a bit more about, making friends with stress? Because a lot of the, I guess, sort of the undertone of these self-help books is basically saying, well, you can just avoid stress if you do these things. You follow my 5-step guide to be stress-free, carefree. If you just did this, you would be that. So can you speak into that for me?
That is one of the most useless and self-sabotaging things you can have. If we have sunlight, you are going to have shadow. If you work in life working to get positive, you are going to have negative. That is why we are down here in these human bodies, to learn duality. So to only have positive thoughts, to be one of the love and light junkies, you're not going to learn anything down here. Trust me. So the whole point is there is good stress and bad stress. Two different things. Good stress is called eustress, EU stress. And that's things like when I'm about to go on in front of an audience, yeah, I got the butterflies in the stomach, but I'm happy they're there. I'm excited. When you're going in for the final interview for a job and you know you're going to nail it. When you're taking your graduate level exams and you know that this is the last step before you go to law school or med school, that's good stress. Bad stress is saying yes when you really want to say no, letting somebody else make decisions that you don't like but you're afraid to say anything, double thinking everything. Double think is awful. I have clients that come to me and first thing I'll say is, well, how old are you? She says, 34. I say, no, you're 68. What? Because you take a thought and then you say, but I should have said that, and what if I do this? So you're living at twice the rate in your head. That's bad stress. But you need to understand that stress is there to help you look at things differently. The two examples I specifically give are stress as the shot across the bow and stress as mission creep. Shot across the bow is that one thing that hits you upside the head with a big clue brick and you go, I'm not doing that again. The example that I use is overindulging in a bakery thing when I was reading at my friend's cafe and I just shoved it in my face and it was way too much sugar and boom. Stress as mission creep is when somebody admires what you do and you say, oh, well, could you knit me some baby clothes? And you do. And someone else says, could you do it for our bazaar? And someone else sees it. And could you do it for our national public radio? And so what used to be lovely and relaxing is now just more screaming deadlines in your face. No is a fabulous idea. I cannot say that often enough. In fact, I have little postcards made up. This big says, no is a fabulous idea. And on the back, I have the tale of Sid, Moses' second cousin, which explains to you why you need to say no.
Love it.
But you see now, you're laughing, and that's a wonderful thing. Number one, it's good for stress. And number two, I'm funny. I know it. I've done stand-up comedy about you think a psychic's life is easy. But when someone laughs, their shields come down, they relax, the information gets in a little better, and they don't look at me as a guru. It's like, oh, she's so smart. It's like I said, the people, when they've read my work in Robert Schwartz book series on pre-birth planning and life between lives, it's been translated into 13 languages. Millions have been sold. Oh my God, I got Corbie on the phone. Oh my God, oh, please. I am sitting here in my tiny little office and the cat is snoring on the cat tree and you've got my cell phone. That's all it is. Take a chill pill.
I love it. I said to a client the other day, I said to her, I called her out. I said, have you put me on a pedestal? And she goes, a little bit. I said, right, I'm getting down off that pedestal now. And I said, instead of looking up to me, you can look across to me because I'm right here on this journey with you. I might be, the one that takes your hand and said, hey, follow me. I've got a path to get you to where you need to be with some strategies, but ultimately we're side by side in this journey. And I think it's so important to just notice where you've put other people on pedestals and asking the question, well, why did I put them there? Because the further you put them up, the further they've got to drop back down again.
That's why one of the things I teach people is mentor, yes, guru, no. I will be your mentor. I will push you a little further than you think you can go. I will kick you out of the nest a little before you think you're ready. And I will applaud you when you get an award for being better at what I do than I am. Perfect example, Meryl Streep thanking her university drama professors as she holds her Oscar. Gurus are the ones that say, I am the one who understands this. My guides talk to me specially, and here are all my books, and here are my courses, and by the way, you can come on a cruise and hear what I said in the books and the courses, but I'm live. I'm not going to say who I'm thinking about, but probably everybody's got one. No.
Yep, I totally hear you there. And I love what you were saying initially about, the first type of stress. Because I always say that, fear, which is, very similar to the stress that you were talking about in the first
Hmm.
instance, fear is just confused excitement. So it's the same physiological response in the body. It's the butterflies, it's the sweaty palms. It's just what we decide to do with the thought process.
Hmm.
And so I think we can apply that in so many areas of our lives. Talk a bit. Let's talk about clarity. Why is it so important?
If you don't have clarity, you won't be able to focus on where you want to go. Um, when there's too much going on, you're trying to write a report, the kid is screaming, the phone ringing, the boss is saying something, you're not clear, and you're hydroplaning. Most people should know what that is. That's when the tire is running on the water on the road and it doesn't have a grip.
Mm-hmm.
When you have clarity, you can see right down the edge of the arrow. You know exactly where you want to go. You know what you want to get rid of in your life. You know who you want to welcome in. You are good on how to take care of yourself. You get rid of the time wasters. You say, this is what I want. And it is people with clarity that are most successful. And I'm not talking billionaires. I'm talking about when they go skidding into heaven on bald tires and fumes in the tank, and God hands them a beer and says, so they get to say, look at all the wonderful things I got to do. It was so much fun. That's clarity.
I love it. And I think with, having clarity, we can then go about and create those boundaries to say the
Mm-hmm.
yeses and to say the nos when we know that,
Exactly.
we're living in alignment with our clarity. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And so tell me, what is the three-legged stool of clarity?
The three-legged stool of clarity, these are the three things you need to get clear on, and everything else can kind of fall into place. Number one, you got to get clear on your purpose. That's the thing you tell God you got to do while you were down here. You got to get clear in your relationships, and that isn't just a significant other. That's school teachers. That's the guy who delivers your mail. That's the person at Starbucks. And getting clear with spirit. Um, I don't care if you are Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, Muslim, pagan, or believe in Ralph the Wonder Dog. I really don't. But I do think you got to know something up there loves you, wants the best for you, and is willing to work with you. Find any design you want, but we're not an accident. We're not. So find a way to connect with what's bigger than you, and that will help steady you. Simple as that.
I love that. And for anyone that's sort of listening, going, well, how do I find my purpose? How is it that I find what I want in relationships? How do I, create that relationship with spirit, God, universal energy source, whatever it is that you want to call it? How do they go about finding that? What are some of the tools that perhaps you can recommend?
Okay. All three are chapters in Clean Out Your Life Closet. Now, for finding your purpose, I do recommend finding what I call your sentence of passion. Your sentence of passion is not who you are or what you do or even how you do it. It's your vapor trail. My sentence of passion is cross the bridge from fear to fearlessness and fly. When I can take somebody from point A to point B when they thought they couldn't make it, whack them on their shoulder, say, here are your wings, you don't need a flight plane, get, I'm living my bliss. But I've done it as an actress, an author, an inspirational speaker, a legal assistant, a video producer, a writer for the graphic novel series ElfQuest, a headhunter, executive recruiter, and a psychic. It's not the job. And while, yes, I do have a consultation you can do with me, it's a lot cheaper to just use the book. And I give you 6 particular questions in here that you can ask yourself. The first one is, what has your life been about? And, it could be money, it could be kids, it could be struggle or change, whatever it is. Look at how that has affected you. For instance, if you've always had not quite enough money, does it make you resent those who've had it? Does it make you want to get it by any means necessary? Does it mean that you have learned to simplify your life? None of those are bad, but they're different choices. Where does your happiness live? Happiness is how you put yourself out in the world. Okay? You look at what's in your life. You look at those things that bring you that joy, that comfort, whether it's a pair of yoga pants, whether it's a husband, whether it's the sunrise any morning. That's going to be part of this mix. Mm-hmm. Where do you find comfort in what you do? That's important. For me, words are my drug of choice. Do not tell me I can't write. My beloved late stepmother was a gardener par excellence. She was happy putting moss plugs in the backyard. And a friend of mine, Rena, is a comedian. And as long as she's getting somebody giggling, life is good. Mm. What crises changed your life? As I said, I've done the cancer dance 3 times. Notice I do not say I fought cancer, because what you fight fights back. And I am not a survivor, because I do a lot more than hang on by teeth and toenails. A cancer dancer finds out how graceful they can be under pressure, avoids getting their toes stepped on, and gets off the dance floor in one piece. That informs a lot of my work. So whether you had cancer, or you lived through a tsunami, or whatever, those crises are places for you to find your courage, your resilience, your imagination. Use those. And the last one is, what do you want to be remembered for? And you don't have to be famous to do that. Some people want to be remembered as the matriarch of the family that everyone loved and trusted. Me, I want to bring people stunning clarity so that their life is better, but I want them to laugh while I find it. Those are 6 examples of how you find your sentence of passion. Getting clear in relationships, they're basic things that I've learned. I mean, Carl and I have been together now 30 years, married for over 20. But both of us got married in our mid-40s. We had to do a lot of dumb stuff first. Get all the dumb out of the way. But it's things like fix versus listen. There's always one person who's the fixer in a relationship. They have to learn not to constantly tell you how it could be fixed if they don't get asked. Ask, do you want me to help you fix this, or should I just listen? They say, listen, you put on the spiritual duct tape. Same thing for to versus at. If you're yelling to me, it's because you need to get something out. If you're yelling at me, it's me. Look at the situation. Don't make it personal sniping. We don't have enough closet space. How are we going to fix it? Is better than you're a closet pig and my stuff's on the floor. And my favorite one, which is the best relationships, are 60-60 propositions. Each party goes a little bit more than halfway, and it's the extra 10% that locks it in the tough times. There are some other ones, but those are the ones that are most important.
I love it so much. That's incredible. And I love how you refer to being a cancer dancer. Is there anything that you would like to speak into about your experience as a cancer dancer?
It's how I learned to live the examined life. In a nutshell, it's, this is happening to me and I don't want it, but I can't stop it. Okay. My first question was, what do I need to learn from this? Then my second question is always, how can I teach with that? And then next. Also, what I learned from the Option Institute through Happiness is a Choice. I got my 3rd bout, which was the 2nd primary, took the danger clock back to 0. But they said, sorry, we're doing a double mastectomy. We're taking your ovaries and you're going from this Dolly Parton figure to a fat fire plug and permanent side effects in 3 weeks. Suck it up. And I'd just been married to Carl for a year and a half. Did I go home and cry? Yes. But the next day I knew I had to find 3 reasons to be okay with it or I wouldn't get through it. Number 1, you don't have them. You can't get cancer there. Number 2, the top half is not going to get slammed in the refrigerator door at the doctor's every year, and every woman listening knows exactly what I'm talking about. 3rd, implants, cool, I'll be perky till I'm 93. Walked out of Mass General after a 6-hour double mastectomy and reconstruction in 3 days, shopped for a bathing suit in 5. It's been over 18 years. This is me at 67, almost 68. Life is great. This is an example of what you can do on the other side. And I am not special. You can do what I do.
I love it. It's so powerful, isn't it? And I teach so much about mindset, and obviously, with the neuro-linguistic programming, it is that voice of the mind. It's what we say to ourselves that creates our whole reality, our whole existence.
Mm-hmm.
And I too, haven't resonated, not that I have been a cancer dancer myself. I've known people that have. My mum went through leukemia 20 years ago, and I noticed, being in circles around, the word survivor and just different words that we use. And I'm thinking to myself, is that where I would sit with it personally myself? And so I love that you say that you've done a dance with it, and that you, of course, you had the human experience of going home and crying about it. And no doubt the why me, why now, all of this came up. And then it's like, well, what are my choices here? And I think that's absolutely incredible.
The other thing I'm going to tell you is you got to move on from the story. I don't really talk about it unless I'm teaching with it. But I know so many women, they're always doing the cancer runs. And when they introduce themselves, they say, "Hi, I'm Susan, and I'm a 15-year colon cancer survivor." Yeah, well, that was then. I mean, in 1973, in high school, I won the Betty Crocker Homemaker of Tomorrow Award for the state of New Jersey. But that was then. I don't talk about it now. So honor that you went through it, but who do you want to be now as it's going in the rearview mirror?
Yes. I see the same concept as well with addiction. So people that have been through active addiction and then choose to stop. The count that goes on, like, I understand why people want to celebrate how long that they've been, sober for, or, clean for. But I feel like the count is just taking them on a journey away from what they were, but they're still stuck into that consciousness, essentially, as opposed to, the line in the sand that says, from this day forward, I'm choosing my story to be this.
If they use that anniversary for a moment of gratitude, no problem with it. But if they wear it as a badge of honor, then I would question.
Yeah, absolutely. So with your book, Clean Out Your Life Closet, Corbie, where can our listeners get their hands on this? It's an absolutely fantastic book. How can we find it not only in Australia but around the world as well?
All right, the best place, of course, is the monster Amazon. If you are in North America, I have a paperback that I can send you because I independently published it. Otherwise, you can get it on Kindle. And it is available as an audiobook, which I did the narration for. I've been a professional voiceover person. And for me, if it's a nonfiction book and the author can read well, you get their passion through their voice. And that's the best time to really get an audiobook, is when you can hear the author read it to you.
I'm a huge fan of audiobooks, and especially when the author narrates it, because they're the one that's put their soul into it anyway. And when you can hear their passion about what they're speaking into, that what you're receiving, what you're taking on board, can have deep and meaningful experience essentially within you. I want to dive into your incredible gifts of tarot reading. You're a past life specialist, psychic medium, and channel. When did you become aware of this gift?
When I was 9, I read a book called The Witch Family by Eleanor Estes, and I said, "Ooh, there's magic in the world. I want to go find it." Fast forward to 1973, when I was a senior in high school working part-time at Spencer Gifts, and they had the James Bond 007 tarot deck, and I bought it because we were all hippies then. We had our elephant bell-bottoms and our fringe jackets and our decks. So for 20 years, I read for friends, keeping my ego out of the way. All of a sudden, in the early 90s, I could do hands-on healing and talk to dead people with no training. That's when the universe handed me my draft notice and said, "Hello, you're working for us." Did it part-time until 9/11. When I turned to Carl, I said, "I need to do this work full-time. People need to know there are other answers out there." He said, "I believe in you. Go do it."
That's beautiful. So when you read for people, what is generally the common theme of what people want to know?
Well, most of the time, it's what I call the everyday tour bus. House, car, job, kids, romance, finance. Okay, gotcha, put me here. What the hell is going on? They also want to know past lives. Who was I in 1642 Belgium? They want to speak to their spirit guide, Binky, and they want to talk to dead Aunt Mabel. I mean, that's what it is, those 4 things. I take my work very seriously, me not so much, which is why I'm kind of chuckling about it now. But when you sit with me, the first thing I'm going to ask you is, what's the most important thing you want to walk out of here knowing today? Because I'm fast, but I can't do your entire life. And if I don't get to the thing that you wanted because you didn't tell me, you're waiting for me to figure it out, you've just wasted your time and your money. So if it's, I'm looking to change careers, tell me that. If it's, I got to look at my kids, tell me that. Because yes, parents can spy on their children any way they like. Just remember, if your mom comes to me, same deal. Don't argue with me. Yes, I can get past lives, but the very deep dish, multiple past lives on a big life challenge, that's a soul plane reading, which is a totally different thing. But past lives can be very useful. The couple of examples that I use. There was a woman who came to me. She said, my son is 29. He won't live more than a mile from me. He won't do anything without checking with me first. This is not right. What's going on? So I took a moment, went upstairs to the Akashic, pulled down the situation. I said, okay, I'm seeing 1944, Utah Beach. So this is D-Day. I'm seeing your son. He's on the beach. He's got shrapnel in his leg. He's badly wounded. You're his commanding officer, and you get over the sand dune. You pull him. You take some shrapnel too, but you both get out and you both live. And I open my eyes, and she's very pale, and she says, can you see my rank? I said, yes, you're a sergeant. She says, he's called me Sarge since he was 3 years old, and we've never known where that came from.
Wow.
That's an example of when past lives are useful. Do not come to me and say, I know I was Anne Boleyn because I can't wear turtlenecks, because baby, that ain't how it works. Nice try.
With I'm super curious about past life readings. I've had one myself, and having hypnotherapy under my belt, I'm actually feeling really called to study past life therapy regression, possibly next year. And let's talk about timelines for a moment. So with past lives, are they actually a past life in the human form of time as we know it? Are we living in parallel timelines at the moment, and we can only comprehend that they're in the past because we're here in the present? Can you speak into that for me?
Time is a human construct. My understanding is time is a web, not a line. So maybe. But I'm sorry, I'm human. This little pea brain does not have the whole answer for you here. But at the same time, you know, the way you say past life regression, it's very important that your listeners know the difference. Regression and retrieval, two very different things. Regression should only be done by someone like Jen, a certified hypnotherapist or past life regressionist, because if you get into a trauma situation, a difficult death, something that would be emotionally shredding, they can pull you out enough so that you can observe it but not relive it. What I do is you just give me an order, and I go up to the Akashic and pull down the book and say, read chapter 2. You don't get hypnotized. You don't do it yourself. I can do it faster for you. It's a little less immediate. Okay? That's important. Also realize we don't remember all of our past lives because they're not all important. If you're a janitor in Sydney and all of a sudden you find out you were Napoleon Bonaparte, are you going to be happy mopping floors? You will be so fixated on who you used to be. But this is where you're learning. The other thing to remember is if you run across someone who reads the Bible and says, but the Bible says we only live once, they're right to. Why? Because it is our soul that reincarnates again and again and again. Corbie, Jen, we are a one and done recipe. This particular personality will never be back down here again.
I love that. And I love what you mentioned about being really mindful of who you go to. I actually had a client come to me a few years ago who had a past life regression done, and it was under hypnosis. And it messed them up a little bit because they got to a certain point, and I think maybe the session ended and it was like, okay, cool, you're done. And within this past life, they had witnessed their whole family being murdered. And then they came to me, they're like, what the fuck do I do with this? So it's so important to make sure the person that you're going to, understands how it's done, is, trained in it, is, got a lot of hours. It's not something that I would offer until I was, absolutely sure, and then worked with someone who could mentor me through that as well.
I'm very curious. Get references.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
With past life regressions or past life, what did you call
Retrieval.
them? The
Retrieval.
retrieval.
Past-
That's it. Once you have that information in your conscious awareness about something that has been experienced in the past life, how does then that go about, supporting you in the healing journey? Is it just the awareness that this was what happened? So say, for example, the client that you had with the son, is it like, okay, we know this now, we can move through this? What's the
Yes,
process there?
that's exactly it. I had a client who was born into a Jewish family, couldn't understand it, never felt right there, but got a past life regression where they saw that they were a German soldier who was very anti Semitic. And so the soul decided to put them into a Jewish family this time to see the other side. That's called unbalanced energy and healing of beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Once they understood that, they were ready to let go of the fear of being Jewish, let go of the difficulty, and understand it was echoes from a past life. And God does not care. God, you can believe in a rooster and a crayon.
Mm-hmm.
It's all just how we put things together so that we understand things. So
Yes.
it completely released decades of self-loathing and pain.
Mm-hmm. I love, especially as a facilitator and a space holder, coach, hypnotherapist, seeing that moment when a client has that release, or that even just when the awareness clicks in, and it could be a full blown awakening for them as well. It is literally a game changer in their life. It's that pivotal moment where they're like, oh my gosh, I know this now, and I didn't know this before.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially my whole life is a lie up until this point. And, it's what they get to do with that then as well. Like that for me in, the work that I get to do in this lifetime, that is what just keeps me going, to see
Mm-hmm.
people have these realizations that they can change, and that, everything is a construct of our mind, isn't it?
But they have to realize they can't get it wrong. The way I
Mm.
explain things is our pre-birth plan is like choosing a college major. You're going to be a physics major. Our free will, the choices we make down here, are like choosing gut courses or double major plus lab. You can make it as hard on yourself as you want, but you will graduate with that degree. You will graduate with the understanding when you are done with this life.
Mm. I love that. And speaking into like essentially this topic of, having,
Mm-hmm.
it's what I call a soul contract.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that, and obviously, we have free will. How can, our listeners understand, or, connect with themselves to perhaps understand what was in their soul contract, so that, like, is there signs that they know that they're on the right path for life, that they're learning the lessons that they need to be learning?
I really would suggest that they go to see Robert Schwartz's site, Your Soul's Plan. That was the first book that we wrote. He's got a lot of stuff in there that explains about divine virtues. It explains about the work we did. It explains how you can go and do some deep work yourself. If you want, I have a YouTube channel, and on there I have a visualization where you meet your higher self, and you can go to the Akashic Records and find a piece that you're working on now and understand it better. So
That's
that's a
amazing.
possibility too.
That's incredible. So for our listeners that aren't even aware of what the Akashic Records are, can you tell us a little bit about that?
The Akashic Records are, uh, it's not really a book, but we'll call it a book. It is the record of everything your soul was, is, or will be, because time is a human construct. So that if you are working on something and it resonates with the life you lived in 1642 Belgium, you can go to the Akashic Records, find that life, learn from that life, so that you can take those lessons into yourself on a conscious level now and avoid the same problems.
Beautiful. I love it. And yes, we'll link in the show notes to all of the websites and your YouTube channel as well. I want to dive a little bit deeper, and I wanted to ask you, what do you think humanity is missing the point of right now?
You got an hour or 6? Good Lord. What I think humanity is missing is we are truly at a tipping point. We are going to be extinct in a century unless we wise up and start treating the earth as the fragile, delicate, life-giving being she is. Stop being greedy. Stop thinking that you have to get an iPhone every 2 years. Stop thinking that if you don't have whatever is good this winter for your coat, last winter's coat, oh, who would see that? Stop treating people as disposable. Stop being polarized. But that's a huge order. If we can at least all agree the earth needs saving and we all need to do it now, that will go a long way to solving a lot of the other problems almost by accident.
It's so true, isn't it? It's so true. What are we collectively not seeing that's probably right in front of us?
That we're all the same person. The difference in looks, culture, they're superficial. That's like you're a cake with chocolate frosting and I have pineapple frosting, and doesn't mean we're from 2 different planets. It's just the frosting. When you get deep down, cake is good. So just accept that. I know. But that's what it is. We're so in this world of duality that we can't see that we really are all the same soul from the same point. And it doesn't have to be as difficult as we make it. It just doesn't.
It's so true, isn't it? I constantly reference nature. We can learn everything that we need to know from nature. We can learn so much about our own seasons. We go through seasons and cycles in nature and we never question it. Yet we feel as though, and I feel like it happens a lot for women, and I work with women, I am a woman, so I understand it on that deeper level. And I feel as though we don't honor our seasons enough, that we don't allow ourselves to, hibernate and go inwards for our own inner winter. And, when we are, preparing to go into the winter, when, we experience fall, we call it autumn. Before we enter the winter and the leaves are starting to fall off the trees, I've not seen anyone outside my window trying to sticky tape the leaves back onto the trees going, no, you're not supposed to do that yet. We just allow it to happen. In fact, we celebrate it because there's crunchy leaves, that we can skip through. And there is so much, if we just took the time to just listen to nature, to be with nature, to feel her heartbeat, to feel all of the things that she has to offer us. It's even as, simple as sitting at the ocean. I was, at the beach on the weekend, and I really enjoy like the very flat part of the beach. We find this area where it's just the flattest, calmest water. And I just go and lie in it. And I let the sun just beam down onto my skin, and I'm floating in the water, and she just holds me. And then there's another part of the beach that we go to where the waves are quite rough. And, she offers the message of ferocity that can come through. Like the ocean can just hold you in such a beautiful way, yet tumble you around as well. And we can take so much away from the ocean just by sitting and being and just looking, meditating with the ocean. We don't have to be there. We can close our eyes and we can see the ocean in our mind's eye. We can take so much away from watching animals and, just going for a walk and, just receiving all that nature has to give us, looking at the flowers, how they just bloom. They're not in competition with each other. They're not trying to compete and say, I'm the prettiest, I'm the brightest, I'm the tallest, I'm this color and you're that color. There is so much that we can take away from nature. And I totally agree with what you said. We can, be inspired. And if we just, one of the things, that we're missing the point of right now is that everything that we're doing on a daily basis is detrimental to this earth, to this planet. And we've lost so much already. We've lost so much of our, our coral reef here in Australia, up at the Great Barrier Reef. We've seen so many animals extinct. We're seeing this a lot more as well. And so she's crying, she's crying out, and it's going to be, she's going to get angry. We're going to see, these weather patterns playing out of her, just saying enough, calm down, like the amount of, plastics that we're going through. I did a podcast recently on, how we can have more of a conscious Christmas, and, do we really just need all of the crap on the Christmas table? Do we really need even like if you think about the plastic, the sticky tape that we use, all of the paper that's just there to be ripped open and then put straight into the bin? Why can't we wrap things up in scarves and tea towels that we'll actually use? And just bringing more awareness into our mind is like, hang on a second, how can I bring into my conscious awareness the impact that I am creating on a daily basis, and how can I start to change that as well? How does that land with you, Corbie? Like, I'd love to hear sort of your version of that.
Well, Mother Nature will survive. If she has to kill off the cockroaches, which is us, she will do that. She will not feel bad for doing it. It's why COVID, it's why things are rising, it's why avian flu, in that any natural organism will fight a disease, and we are the disease.
100%, yes. Yes, we procreate like disease, essentially. we are a virus to the earth. Absolutely. I agree with you. Yeah. And I would love to hear from you as well. What is the meaning of life to you?
Learning. Experience, but not as in I went to every Grateful Dead concert or I've eaten at all the new restaurants. It's what we can do in bodies. A lot of the stuff we cannot do outside without a body. I don't know what it's going to be like when I've crossed over, but I know in this body, I enjoy sitting down to a meal. I enjoy hugging my cat, 27 pounds of Maine Coon cat. I love watching the seasons change. I grew up outside Philadelphia, in one of the biggest cities in the U.S., but living where I am, I know that the Dame's Rocket comes out in May, the Daisies come out in June, the Chicory comes out in July, and I actually know the seasons based on the flowers now. I have been able to observe. Life is, how much can you learn to love? How much gratitude can you feel and bestow? How much can you ease the pain, even a spark of it, before you go? And what can you teach? What can you teach and leave behind?
Yes, I think that's such a big part of my journey is what is it that I see myself as an open channel of wisdom, and whatever I experience in my human life, if I get to pass that on, if I'm that wide open channel, I will continue to receive it as long as I'm, that cycle, essentially that toroid that moves through me that says, hey, I'm open to receiving all of this and all of the lessons, and I will share them. That's my secret handshake, essentially, with the universe.
Yes.
And it's interesting. I found some peonies at the flower store the other day, some beautiful pink peonies, and they're my absolutely favorite flower. And I remember sitting in a plant ceremony once and thinking to myself, oh my gosh, how lucky am I to be human and just smell peonies, because without our human senses, we wouldn't be able to taste the food, smell the flowers, touch our partners, feel things around us, hear the sound of the birds chirping, hear the sounds of our children giggling. We are so blessed to be here. And, it is an absolute miracle that we're here, that we made it to Earth in this time and space. And to make the most of this life. And this is what I love about this podcast. It's the enlightened journey of life, because we don't want to just reach that enlightened state. I'm certainly in no hurry to reach enlightenment, because then it's like a video game. It's like game over. Then it's like, well, I'm not done collecting all of the bits and pieces on this level, and finding new crevices to go and explore and find different meanings for life itself, and get to know myself on a deeper level as well. And this is what I'm just so fascinated by with humans, is that I feel like we come here with, when we're born, we come here with what I call human experience amnesia. And, we come just completely forgetting everything. And it's part of our journey, if we decide it to remember who we are, remember why we came here, remember that we, like you said, we are all one soul, that we do get to, experience life on this planet, and what a blessing it is. And I think from that state of mind or level of consciousness, whatever it is you want to call it, we can decide what we want our lives to be. We do get a choice. We don't have to be part of the rat race. We don't have to be on that hamster wheel going around and around. We do get to draw a line in the sand and say, stop, this is not my story anymore. This is not my, how I'm choosing things. I actually get to, decide what it is that I want to experience in life, the places that I want to go, the things that I want to do, the food that I want to eat at whatever time of the day. And this is what I love about, working with clients, is I get to hear their perspective. I get to hear their view of the world, which is always, going to be different to mine. And then I'm able to create from that. I'm able to, gather pieces of information and say, well, this is what this person's heard. This is what they believe. Does this resonate for you? How can we change our mindset around that as well? I was talking to a client recently, and she was having some issues with her young son not wanting, to sit down and eat the dinner, at the table. They didn't want to eat. And it's like, well, how do we decide that that's the time that we sit down to eat dinner, that this is what we're supposed to have for dinner, that this is how it's supposed to be? What if we just created different choices? What if it looked different? I love a good plot twist. I'm here for the plot twist. I'm here for, deciding that, hang on a second, this is a system or a level of consciousness or a condition that I've been brought up in. This isn't mine anymore. I'm not choosing to align with this anymore. The sovereign being that I am says this, I'm changing this. I'm breaking free from that shackle. And, I love what you were saying earlier about, because I always think that if we decide to do something different, and we have our yeses and our nos, and we create our boundaries from that, sometimes that's going to, trigger or activate other people. I know that my boundaries sure have. If I've said no to something or someone's come along and said, well, hang on a second, you can't say that, you can't put that boundary up. It's like, well, actually I can, because at the end of the day, even though my priorities are fluid, I will always be my number one, because if I'm not my number one, I can't pour out to everybody that I come into contact with. I can't run a business. I can't be a good mom, the best partner that I can be. All that I'm choosing to be comes down to the fact that I choose me first and foremost.
I give my clients what I call my two magic phrases. Anytime somebody doesn't believe them, wants to argue, tells them they're wrong and insistent, I just tell my clients to listen to them. You smile. You say, thank you for sharing. You may think that if you wish. And then you go do what the hell you need to do. Mm-hmm. You didn't argue with them, but you didn't agree. You left it lying there.
Yes. Yes, I always say that, in everybody's view of the world, they're right, because essentially they are. Just because you disagree with them, just because you might have a different understanding or perception or belief system, if you want to be right about something, you can be right about something, and I think we've seen this in the collective. We've seen such a divide in the last few years about this is right and this is wrong. And ultimately, based on our survival instincts, there's only two things that we need to, survive as a human, is to be safe and to be right. And lately, because our survival has been compromised, we're literally fighting each other to be right, because that's where we receive our dopamine, essentially. You know, when we were children growing up, we were praised, we were told we were right for doing something, we were reprimanded for being wrong. And so we've got such an unhealthy relationship with being wrong. So much so that we'll fight, you know, the keyboard warriors. You get triggered about something and everyone's pushing their perspective, their agenda, their idea how things should be. And at the end of the day, when we honor the fact that everyone is right in their own view of the world, which gives, you know, you the entitlement to be right in your view of the world, and we don't need to meet in the space of conflict. We can meet in the space of peace with the understanding that we're all right based on who we are and our little view of the world.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah. And so, Corbie, is there any other wisdom that you would like to impart on our listeners? Anything that you would like to share with them?
Well, let's see. First thing is always ask 3 questions when you're looking at how you're feeling about a situation and you're stuck. What am I X about? X could be fearful, angry, worried, depressed, whatever. Why am I X about that? And then the question we never ask ourselves, what do I think would happen if I stopped being X about that? Notice that gives you permission to change. That's the most important thing. When you learn to ask those 3 questions, you can turn your life inside out, upside down, and discover parts of yourself you never knew existed.
I love it. They're fantastic takeaways. And
Thank you.
It's so true, isn't it? Like when we just invite in that, you know, that self-awareness, when we ask ourselves these questions, we get to know ourselves on such a different level. And it's interesting because I have something called the belief deconstruction, and there's a lot more questions, but it's sort of taking, you know, the experience or the belief that we have and saying, hang on, where did this come from? Whose is it? You know, was it mum's? Was it dad's? Was it the school teachers? Was it my siblings? Where did it come from? You know, what proof have I found in order to sustain this? Like, how has it kept me safe? And why have I valued this so much? And, you know, what would life be like if I change this belief? And the thing is, like, we've got this incredible thing called mind plasticity where, you know, we're not stuck. We can change our minds. We know that there is science around creating new neural pathways and changing our mindset, and we can get through this. You know, we can do it through hypnosis. We can do it through meditation. We can do it through affirmation. You know, there's no right or wrong way to do it, but we know that we can do it, which is the best thing. And I think there is such a call up for humanity at the moment. You know, there is so much space to be able to ask the questions now around the beliefs that we've had for so long, and saying, hang on, if this is not, you know, feeling as though it's aligned to my highest purpose or my highest good, if this is not a full body fuck yes for me, if this is not lighting up my soul, then what is the thing that I have to do, be, experience, the place that I have to go in order to have that? And I love that we have landed in this time and space, Corbie, on this beautiful planet of polarity and duality where, you know, we're so blessed to land in the digital age because we have things, you know, like social media to connect on. We have this magical thing called a podcast that we can, you know, connect and see each other in different time zones. I'm, you know, if we're looking at, you know, the human construct of time, then I'm actually coming to you from the future. And so, you know, it's incredible that we are able to, you know, share and connect and, you know, be present and open our eyes to a different way of being. And that's one of the things I absolutely love about the human experience, that I think, you know, that we're taking so much for granted.
Every single day you wake up is a gift. Don't waste it.
It's so true, isn't it? It's so true, because it can be just, we can be catapulted out of it at any time, you know, when we don't necessarily have a choice in it. And, you know, it's very unexpected. And I think I personally know, you know, when I've, you know, lost a loved one around me, it brings me home. It just brings me, it snaps me into this awareness of like, oh my gosh, I actually had a dream about someone passing the other night. And when I woke up in the morning, it was like, oh, that's right. Hang on. I'm in this life and I'm not completely invincible. And even though I feel like I'm going to be around for a very long time and I've got my work cut out here for me, I don't get a say in that either, just because I think that that's how it's going to play out. And my loved ones around me as well. You think that they're going to just, be okay. And I had an experience a few months ago. I got a phone call when my parents were on holidays down in Melbourne, and my father had become very well very quickly. And I thought it was the phone call that you get. Mm-hmm. And so I jumped on the next plane down, and, luckily he was okay, but it was just, being on the plane for a few hours and just traveling down there, not knowing what I was walking into. It was like, hang on a second. Have I told him everything that I want to tell him in this human life? Have I asked him the questions that I've wanted to ask him? Have I honored him for the incredible, man that he is and the life that he has lived? And, it's definitely brought us closer in our relationship. In fact, he does some volunteer work every week. It's a company called Sailability, because he's a sailor. He's been on the water for, his whole life essentially. And they take disabled clients out sailing out on the bay. And, it came to me the other day. I'm like, why am I not spending a day, a fortnight volunteering? I get to, work with these incredible clients who have a completely different experience of life. I get to donate my time, which I've got plenty. I've got an abundance of time that I can share, and I get to spend more time with my father. And so it's interesting when we have these experiences, what we make of them. Where is it that we can assess where am I not showing up where I could be fully showing up, or, asking my father the questions, or just, instead of being on my phone when I'm around him or being distracted, it's really just sitting down and saying, hey, Dad, I'd love to hear this from you.
Yes. It's the old, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. I was so very lucky. My father was my best friend, and he and I both knew that throughout life. So nothing was left unsaid. But I know that's rare.
Yeah, it is. It is. And yeah, like I know that, we're all on limited time here. And, you want to hope that your parents are going to be around forever. And it's only when, we experience either loss or, the possibility of loss that it kind of just thumps us back into, hang on a second, this could change at any time. Yeah. Yeah.
Very true.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast, Corbie. It's been absolutely incredible to hear about. It's just a fraction of your journey that you've been through. Like I said, you've done some absolutely incredible things, and it's been so special to have you here and talking about the book and talking about your experience in the work that you do. And I'd love to get you on in another episode as well. I feel like we could talk for hours on all of the different topics that we've tried to cover today in the hour. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we wrap up?
Only that this was a lovely time. You did ask questions that I don't usually get asked, and that was delicious. Thank you so much. And I look forward on coming back. As we say in New York, we'll talk, we'll have coffee,
I love that so much. Thank you so much, Corbie.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you love the Enlightened podcast, and the biggest compliment you can give me is subscribing to this podcast, sharing it, and leaving a rating and review. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. My handle is @JenHamiltonOfficial, and the podcast handle is Enlightened_podcast. You can also find the video version on YouTube on my channel. Just search Enlightened, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Have a beautiful day and enjoy living the enlightened journey of life.